And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Burn City D-backs Talk. So joining me today to talk about the Diamondbacks' recent success is Arizona sports beat writer Alex Weiner. So, Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me on. How's it going?
It's been a while, I think, since the last time you and I got a chance to talk baseball. So, um, the Diamondbacks have, since June 29th, have won 33 of their last 46, and they seem to be cruising right into the postseason with arguably Major League Baseball's best offense with more than 5.3 runs scored per game. How are you feeling about the team's chances moving forward?
To secure a playoff spot, yeah, I mean it's looking pretty good. They're up 5 games, I believe, on the Mets, who are sort of the first team out on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But sort of, there's no time to get comfortable, obviously, because they play all these teams, right? And so they have a 3-game series coming up against the Mets, and then you look at the division and their potential, contention for the division.
Oh.
They have a series against the Dodgers coming up, which is a huge one. 4 games at Chase Field. They play the Padres again, so they're going to face a lot of these teams whom they're either chasing or are chasing them down the stretch. So it'll make it pretty exciting. But yeah, for right now, I mean, what they've done over the last couple of months, they've put themselves in great position, a much better position than they put themselves in last year to make the postseason at this time. So yeah, I hard not to be optimistic about their chances at this point.
So we can kind of look at them right now. Their top 3 position players are out. Their best 3 defenders, so Walker's out, Ketel Marte's out, and Gabriel Moreno's out. And there's only really been one series where their defense has been missed when Tampa Bay basically ran wild for an entire weekend against them. How much does it say that the Diamondbacks basically can, no matter who's in the lineup, they seem to have the ability to score enough runs to win a baseball game?
Yeah, it's huge. It speaks a lot about the depth. They were very proactive to get Josh Bell in there, given the timing of Walker's injury the night before the trade deadline. Adrian Del Castillo was somebody who, at least hearing about him and watching him a little bit, just it felt like the bat was at least going to be ready to contribute. Maybe not to the level that it has at this point, which has been amazing. I mean, 14 RBIs in his first 9 games, the 3 huge home runs, grand slam, walk off, game tying homer. And then, with Ketel, this it's a little bit less obvious because his impact has been so immense. But Kevin Newman is filled in pretty well as far as just being, a capable, trusted guy to fill in there. And they add in Luis Guillorme for a little bit of depth and veteran stability. So yeah, they've done a great job as far as kind of filling those roles as much as they can. Obviously they're going to need to have those guys back at some point down the stretch run. And another thing too, is just the rest of the lineup has really elevated. Obviously, Gino Suarez had a really difficult first couple months of the season, but he has been terrific for them for, pretty much since the start of July, even going into late June. And Corbin Carroll is going to be a huge main player of this going down the stretch, even if he hasn't quite been, living up to the expectations he set from a monster rookie year. Now that power is back. I mean, that power, he's really turned it on over really since I think July 7th was when he hit his 3rd home run of the season. At that point, he had 2 home runs in 87 games. And then since then, he's been a consistent power threat, triples, home runs. He's not quite hitting for the same average that he did last year, but as far as just being impactful every game, that has made so much of a difference. And then Jake McCarthy, I can't forget Jake McCarthy and Jock Peterson. So it's just the length of the lineup has really impacted this team. Where it's able to sort of make up for a lot of the injuries, but that said, they're going to need these guys back if they're going to reach their potential.
Yeah, and speaking of Corbin Carroll, he's reached base in 31 straight games. The Diamondbacks have won 25 of them. How do you think that's kind of been the key for them withstanding these injuries?
Corbin specifically, I think it's been huge. You need that guy. I mean, he was the engine that made the offense run last season at the top of the order. And they, losing that, they managed in the first part of the season. They were still able to have these big offensive performances, but didn't have quite the consistency offensively that you would like to see. And then Ketel got red hot, and they got some other guys going. Now that they're down a few guys, Corbin's continued production is going to be incredibly vital for this team to keep that offensive attack going. Because yeah, that's a lot of run production that you're losing with Marte, Moreno, and Walker not in the lineup every day. So if Corbin is the guy that you look at to make up for it, then the way we frame his entire season, I think, changes.
Yeah, and then going straight back into, like I said, Jock Peterson's been consistent from basically game one of the season. And you could say, arguably, from a value standpoint, one of the best free agent signings in the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Hard to overstate that. I think when he signs, it's like, okay, what kind of role they're going to have for him? Or is he going to play any defense at all? Is he going to be every day? Is he just a platoon? And the way that they used him as a platoon bat, DH only, and he's just been consistently raking all season, showing a lot of power. He's already up to 20 home runs, even without sort of the everyday at bats. So yeah, no, that was a game changing offseason move, and you could go back to throughout Mike Hazen's tenure about most impactful free agent signings for that season. As far as bats are concerned, I don't know if anybody really comes all that close to the impact that Jock has had.
Yeah, because the way I look at it, it seems like every time in big situation, Jock Peterson gives you the at-bat the team needs the most. We look at that recent win against the Marlins. He drew a critical walk that kind of set up the inning. Then they get a couple big hits from Josh Bell and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. All of a sudden, again, it looked like they had no chance of winning. They suddenly just struck and got the lead right back. And then, of course, we know how that game ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, a really, really mature at bat who, this has been who he's been for years as far as being a patient hitter. But now that he's put into this role to really just kind of let him go against right-handed pitching, it's really, really worked out.
So transitioning over, kind of talking about the fact the Diamondbacks have overcome so many injuries this year to get themselves basically into a situation where they have a 90% chance of making the postseason on both Baseball America and Fangraphs. I wanted to ask you this question. What is your opinion on Torey Lovullo's Manager of the Year candidacy?
Yeah, it's a good one, right? Because with Manager of the Year, too, it's so hard to pinpoint what makes a Manager of the Year. A lot of it's like expectation versus, results and all that stuff. And I think coming off of a World Series, but then immediately getting punched in the mouth with so many injuries early on and keeping this team afloat, I wonder if the postseason run last year, because, postseason doesn't count towards this award, but I wonder if, how he managed that postseason helps him a little bit, just as far as how people see him and how he manages this team and keeps this clubhouse going, and how they were able to manage that first, couple of months where it seems like every other day somebody else was getting injured, and they were, they never really completely fell off the cliff where they couldn't climb back into it. I'm sure he has a terrific case, especially at least to be a finalist this year. That said, I've heard some buzz for Pat Murphy, coming over, replacing Craig Counsell. They trade Corbin Burns, and then, they are still going to win the National League Central pretty handily. Mike Shilton, San Diego, also has had to deal with plenty of injuries like Torey, a team that traded away Juan Soto last year or last offseason, and it's still right there neck and neck with the Diamondbacks. So there's going to be plenty of competition in the National League for this. But I think, the way that the Diamondbacks have kind of overcome what they've overcome, I think it's hard to overstate or it's hard to overlook the case that Torey has. Yeah,
the three managers that you mentioned, I think, are, in my opinion, the clear-cut top three, because you look at the Padres and Shildt, that's a team that was safe for like 2 weeks in September when they got hot, and then carried it all the way to the NLCS in 22. Padres have been a pretty dysfunctional group despite the talent on their roster. And then, of course, with Milwaukee, it doesn't seem to matter who makes the personnel decision, who's on the team, they just win. But that may also be a function of the fact they have 4 teams in their division that aren't necessarily put well together and managed as consistently as what Pat Murphy and Craig Counsell have done over there.
I think the narrative too there, it's like, Craig Counsell leaves, they sell their ace, and it's like, okay, they're taking a step back, but then they haven't. And I think that will certainly, propel him, just as like the guy who took over for Craig Counsell and was, the team was just as good. I don't know. I don't know how the voting's going to come down to in the end, but I do think those three will all have a good case.
Yeah, because you look at that Corbin Burns trade, I would say you should applaud Milwaukee for the return they got for 1 year of Corbin Burns, basically.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
It's like, all right, so we'll go from the starting lineup to the starting rotation. So How long do you believe the D-backs will carry a 6-man rotation? Do you think it'll be through the end of the month, or do you think it'll be just one? Oh, well, one turn through the order would be the rest of the month, but
Sure. Hard to say because they've been very adamant about not wanting a 6-man rotation. Especially because they have some off days. They just had an off day yesterday. On we're recording on Friday, so on Thursday, and they'll have another one coming up on Monday. So, with the off days and you have a 6-man rotation, you're just guys are pitching once a week, and maybe that's helpful, but this is also a team with a lot of guys who are coming back from injury, and it's sort of the balance of easing them back in versus building them up. So I don't know that they've been pretty clear about this not being all that comfortable having a 6-man rotation. That said, it's a really hard decision because I think the easiest thing in the world would be, oh, Jordan Montgomery, the last few starts is unbelievably good. And so it's like, okay, put him, he's starting to turn a corner, put him in the 5 spot. Nelson can handle the bullpen, but that hasn't been the case. And Montgomery, again, against the Marlins, gets tagged with a couple of home runs. I believe it was 6 earned runs at the end of the day, and he leaves and they're down 6-3. They end up mounting a comeback, but his ERA is still 6.44, and it hasn't really consistently gone down. Like, it'll go down for a couple of games and just shoot back up, and so they still haven't gotten that reliability yet. While Nelson has been their most useful starter since the beginning of July, and maybe even a little before then. With just how consistent he's been able to get deep into games and keep them in these games, even when he doesn't have his best stuff. So it's just really hard to take away a guy like that, take him out of the rotation. And I know he would probably have a better, I guess a more important role out of the bullpen, just given the way he can kind of ramp his stuff up. And he's been a reliever before. In college, he closed some games out, the World Series last year. So there's more of a path to him having a more impactful bullpen role. But if he's doing this every 5th day in the rotation, that just makes this decision rather difficult. So I don't know entirely how long they'd want to drag this out. But at some point, they're going to have to pick 5.
So game 3 against the Mets, which would be when. So let me do the math here. So Montgomery pitched game 3 against the Marlins. So we would be okay. So yeah, that would be the second game against. No, yeah, it would be the third game against the Mets. It's like that's going to be the day of the mark. It's like, okay, are they going 6 or are they going 5?
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
they keep doing this. They keep doing this. Like, Ryan Nelson is available if Montgomery only goes 3 innings or something like that, and then Montgomery just gets deep enough into the game where they don't use him, and then he starts the next day. So yeah, I don't know the whole thing. But you're right. They're going to have to at least, unless they just commit to the 6-man rotation, but they just haven't done it yet.
Because when we look for and the Diamondbacks situation, obviously they have quite a sizable gap in the wild card race. They're 5 games ahead of the Mets right now, 3.5 ahead of Atlanta, and 3.5 a game ahead of San Diego. They have a little bit of wiggle room to try and experiment with a couple things, which is why Nelson pitching out of the bullpen wouldn't necessarily be a shocking decision if you decided to commit to that, because when you get into the wild card series, you're only going to need 3 starters. The division series, depending on the off days, you may only need 3 starters. I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think the American League will be getting the extra off day. Mm-hmm. I'll have to check the postseason schedule, but even with that in mind, it's like you carry 4 start. You only need a 4 starter if it goes 4 games. And
sure.
In a game 4 situation, division series could be an all hands on deck game, depending on how it goes, because it's either going to be either a closeout game or an elimination game for however that series goes. All right, so looking at the schedule, so it looks like the American League gets the extra day off this year. So October 6th is just the National League. So if the Diamondbacks were to advance that far, they would not be able to get away with a 3-man rotation like they did against the Dodgers last year.
Right, but now you have Eduardo Rodriguez, and so you kind of you pick those 4 and some sort of order. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like yet. We'd have to still see a few more starts from Erod to get a feel for that. But yeah. So once you get to the postseason, this becomes less of an issue. But up until then, they have a little wiggle room as far as falling out of the wild card race. But of course, if you can find a way to continue to contend for that NL West, it's 4 games, which is not easy, but they play the Dodgers 4 more times. So this is still pretty. There's a lot still to kind of grab that's ahead of you, as well as keep the teams behind you squarely where they are. So yeah, I don't know, like wiggle. I wouldn't say wiggle room is the right term there, but there's opportunities here, and so I don't know. I don't know how long they go along with this.
Yeah, and also one more thing to throw in there. So Bickley and Murata on Twitter threw that poll out. What was the most concerning thing? I'll have to go look for it because I opined on that one. What is oh yeah, here we go. Biggest question you need to answer. And the injuries obviously came up as number 2, but number 1. But I think the most important thing, regardless of who's healthy, come October 1st, is going to be how Zack Gallen and Merill Kelly are performing. Would you agree or disagree?
I would probably put the injuries first, but assuming that everybody's back and healthy by the postseason, yeah, you need your top 2 guys to be your top 2 guys, and they have better depth now, better bullpen depth now after adding AJ Puck and Dylan Floro. They have better rotation depth at this point than they did, way better rotation depth than they had last year. But they got to the postseason because Merrill Kelly was unbelievable in the postseason, and Zack Gallen didn't quite have the highs that Merrill did until his last start of the World Series, which was unbelievable. But he still was very solid for them for at least chunks of the postseason, and the guy that you can rely on down the stretch. So they're in a position where, and look, Kelly's only made 2 starts, so I know the velocity was down that last start. You kind of want to see it a couple more times before you start to worry. With Gallen, it just hasn't been as sharp since he came back from the hamstring injury. And, I know, Jack Summers has kind of logged back his like whole year, like year-to-year stats that haven't been quite as good as sort of his back end of 2022, beginning of 2023. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that they have pegged as the ace and that they're going to rely on, and they're going to need a little bit more out of him than some of the inconsistencies that they've gotten. He's kept them in a lot of these games. He's fought his way out of traffic in a lot of these games. It's not to say that this has been like a disaster or anything like that, but it just hasn't been ace quality as far as his results over the, really the past like month and a half or so. So yeah, that's obviously going to be really important, but these are guys that they would trust in any big spot to go out and give them, the 6 quality innings that they need.
Yeah, because the way I see it, getting Zack Gallen and Merrill Kelly right is going to be what determines how far they go into the postseason, in my opinion, because they were so good last year. They made it as far as they did, despite the fact the rest of the rotation, you didn't know what you were going to get. And as Diamondbacks fans, especially those who have been around for a long time, knows 2 starting pitchers can carry a team all the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But there were, but I think that they are better positioned this year to kind of withstand it a little bit better. Fott is another year older and has had a very productive year for them, and Erod being healthy is so helpful for them. And this offense it's in a different place than it was last year, especially once they get everybody back and healthy, and if Ketel, hits the ground running again. So I think they're in a little bit better of a position to withstand it if there are some bumps with the starting rotation. But yeah, the most clear path to getting to the World Series again is just by having lockdown pitching and solid defense, and that's what they pride themselves on.
All right. So going from the rotation to the bullpen, do you believe Justin Martinez is being groomed to be the next closer, and they're going to try and get him as much experience as they can before they get into the postseason? Or do you think it's just temporary and they're going to try and slide Sewell back in there once they feel comfortable making that decision?
Oof, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. Justin Martinez has gotten, I believe, the last 4 or 5 saves. And it seems clear that he's the go-to guy there. I know they haven't committed to him as the closer verbally necessarily, and they say it's matchups based, but I don't know. It seems like every matchup he's the one who's back there and going after these saves. And I think that's ideal at this point, right? Because of, AJ Puck, you want to have the versatility to kind of use him against the lefties, before then. Maybe if you come up and it's the ninth inning and three lefties are due up, then you give him the opportunity to close the game for you over Justin. But yeah, for now, it certainly feels that way. And Justin has closer stuff, and he is started to look a little bit better in these high leverage moments. And so I think, I don't know about groomed just for the experience, because they're in a playoff race and you're looking for the guy who's going to give you the best opportunity to win these games. And for now, that seems like Justin in the ninth inning can do that. As far as Seawald is concerned, Torrey has said the best version of this bullpen is with Seawald in the ninth inning, and then they can kind of build it up from there. And they haven't, gone back to that yet. He's still kind of pitching in low leverage. I'm curious to see if the next couple of weeks, if they start getting him into more higher leverage situations, even if they're not save situations. But I don't know. I think it's one of those things where if Justin Martinez continues to pitch well and executes and locks these saves down, he'll continue to get the opportunities. But if there are bumps, then Seawald, is kind of primed for another opportunity to close games again. I don't know. I don't know exactly when that timeline would be, but I think as long as Justin keeps on executing, then, it's not really a reason to take him out of it.
Because when I look at Seawald's game log on Baseball Reference, it's like since he was demoted from the closer's job at the start of the month, he's pitched 7 games and he's been scoreless in 6 of them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he gave up the 3 hits and the 2 runs against the Marlins in a low leverage outing that made the game a little more interesting than it really was. But if I pull up that stretch, it's like it's not necessarily locked down because opponents have a 733 OPS against Seawald because he's given up 6 hits. Mm-hmm. But 8-3 strikeout to walk in 7 innings. In 7 innings, opponents hitting 240. I just think, in my opinion, it's good, but it's not necessarily lockdown. You need a lockdown guy for the 9th inning because these postseason games, you're going to have a 1 or a 2 run lead in these situations.
Yeah. I mean, they're also going to have to feel out how Justin handles this stuff. I mean, he's still really young. I think he just turned 23 years old. These are the most high leverage games that he's ever pitched in. And so far, there have been some moments where it looks like it got a little big, and they've had, these pitching, these mound visits where Perdomo comes up and Gabby or whoever is catching since Gabby got hurt comes up and talks to him and calms him down. So what will that look like if it's a do or die game 3 of a wild card series or game 3 of an NLDS? So I think that's something else to kind of take the temperature of. I think, giving him these opportunities now will help him continue to get more comfortable and more comfortable. With Seawald, July was a really difficult month, and he's made some adjustments as far as where he starts. He wasn't starting the way that he wanted to. As far as starting his delivery, he kind of likened it to a golf swing where if your grip is wrong, you're just kind of behind the 8 ball from the very beginning. And so kind of making those adjustments, it's going to be a process to kind of get back to where he really wants to be at, and feeling like he's throwing at his best. It's been pretty solid in these low leverage situations, but yeah, I'm curious again, just will they start amping it up a little bit, or are they satisfied with what the bullpen currently looks like? That's going to be definitely a storyline, because their bullpen was such a big reason why they got as far as they did last year. And now there are some questions.
Yep, because the Diamondbacks postseason run was basically 9 players carrying the rest of the squad, and Diamondbacks will certainly need those same 9. Will certainly need almost the same 9 players to get the job done this year.
Who are your 9 players?
So with the rotation, you got Gallen, Kelly, Fott as your 3, unless they decide to pick Erod over Fott in the wild card series, although I don't think they should. because Brandon Pfaadt always has that one weird inning where he loses control of the game for like 2 or 3 hitters, and next thing you know, there's a 3 spot on the scoreboard. I think in the postseason they're going to get on top of that much quicker, especially since in a wild card series, if Brandon Pfaadt's starting, it's all hands on deck because it's game 3.
Sure, yeah, you'll have like a Ryan Nelson to go to in relief when that kind of situation happens. So yeah, if Pfaadt gives you 5 innings of 1 earned run and walks the first batter of the 6th inning, it's going to be pretty quick, I would imagine. But, yeah,
2 guys get on the 6th and it'll be a quick hook. And kind of the thing that worries me a little bit is kind of the usage with Martinez in the last Diamondbacks last week or so. Last 6 games, he's thrown a lot of pitches. I think he's thrown 70 pitches since August 12th. I'll have to check the numbers here. Because 30 of them obviously came in the series finale against the Marlins. All right. Since the Tampa Bay series, he's thrown 72 pitches in 4 outings. So they had to be careful. I think they have to be a little bit careful with his usage, in my opinion, because if he suffers an arm injury, he's done till 20. He's out probably all of 25 too, if we're talking like a serious arm injury. And they really can't afford to lose Martinez for that much for any season due to an injury. And so that's the kind of thing they have to be careful for. And also Ginkel's usage is starting to ramp up because Ginkel's been the get out of jail free card out of the bullpen no matter what inning you put him in.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. And it's something that's come up in pregame pressers with Torrey, and it's he talked about it. This has been a topic that's been discussed behind the scenes as well. Martinez, as far as he's going to set a new career high for innings. I don't know if it'll get there for pitches necessarily because he's been a lot more efficient this year than he has in previous years where he was throwing more innings or more pitches per inning. But yeah, no, usage and how they're using all these guys because Martinez pretty much since I don't know, I forget exactly the day he got called up, but it's just been a consistent, he's been healthy and he's been useful for them since the middle of April, and Ginkel since the very beginning of the year. The same thing with Ryan Thompson too, although, Ginkel's sort of, they've used him in a little bit more of a versatile way. So yeah, you're right. That's something to keep track of, but yeah, I don't know how much the fan perspective is going to, see those considerations come into effect because if tonight the Diamondbacks are up 3-2 going into the 9th inning, I would expect to see Justin Martinez out there. So that's sort of where they're at right now. But yeah, it's something to definitely keep in the back of the mind because you need all these guys for the future as well. But at the same time, this is a postseason race and they're going to kind of have to, manage this accordingly.
I would say the biggest 10 game stretch of their season is coming up, starting with Boston. Not necessarily anything the Red Sox have to do with it, but they're just there. They're just in that 10 game stretch.
Yeah, they're a decent team. So, but then Mets, Dodgers, that's gigantic.
Yeah, because the series win against the Mets, the Diamondbacks' magic number will go down by 5 because you would get 2 wins, 2 losses plus the tiebreaker. Those are your 5. And of course, for the Diamondbacks to have any chance of winning the National League West, they have to take at least 3 of 4 against the Dodgers and cut that division lead in half. And then just outplay them for 2 games because then they would have the 8-5 head-to-head tiebreaker in that situation.
Which would be huge in that case. If they can take 3 out of 4 and get the head-to-head tiebreaker, that just makes them so much more dangerous. The Dodgers have been, I think they're winning, their percentage to win the West has always been in the 90s and the 80s all year. And then recently it's dipped down to the 60s, and now it's back up to 80 because they're winning all these games. Since Mookie Betts got back, they just swept the Mariners. But yeah, if the Diamondbacks can kind of stay within 4 games of them by the time that their series begins and they win 3 out of 4, all of a sudden then we're looking, could it be a 60-40 something? I mean, the Padres are obviously in there as well. So yeah, it just makes everything a lot more, cluttered and clumped together. And that's where you want to be. You want to have a chance going into this last month.
Now, I did actually look at the Dodgers schedule. Their final 2 series are at San Diego, and I believe... No, wait, no. I think they're hosting San Diego. I'll have to double check, but San Diego and Arizona... Colorado, I think, are their last 2 series.
Yeah. It goes Marlins,
Oh wait, it's the
Rockies,
Padres that had
Padres,
the tough ending.
Rockies. So the Dodgers have a pretty easy schedule other than that Padres series to end their season, which doesn't bode well for teams going after them in the division. But the Padres are going to have some tough games, and the Diamondbacks are going to have some really tough games down the stretch because they play the Brewers in 2 different series. Then they play the Giants in 2 different series in September, and then of course they get the Padres to end the year. So it's a little bit of a different beast when you're looking at the Padres schedule, the Diamondback schedule, and then what the Dodgers are going to have to do. So yeah, that just makes this series all that much more important for Arizona to, cut that gap a little bit.
Because when you look at that last week of the MLB season, I think the NL West will be the only division that'll be up for grabs, in my opinion. And if it's not,
the AL East could be.
Yeah, I suppose the AL East could as
and
well.
The AL Central is really close.
Yeah, I was going to say Cleveland's not necessarily running away within the Central, AL Central.
But in the National League,
Royals have.
In the National League,
yeah, but in the National League, because Padres play the Dodgers and Diamondbacks the last week of the season. The Diamondbacks play the Padres, which will probably decide the 4 seed, most likely, if the division's wrapped up by then. Although it'll decide who hosts the games, not necessarily if they'll play each other. Because if
they could play each other.
Now, here's the thing for the playoff bracket.
Play each other. Yeah.
If the current bracket stands, you could have the 3 best teams in the National League on one side of the bracket. Between the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Dodgers, and that's going to be a bloodbath, in my opinion, because any of those 3 teams, I think, could go to the championship series.
Yeah, I mean, if we get Diamondbacks, Padres 3 games to end the season, and then another 2 games, or potentially 3 games for a wild card series, that'll be fun. I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be some high stakes baseball. That'd be a heck of a matchup between 2 teams that just got to see each other. But there's a lot to sort out before then.
Especially since, that would be literally a series preview because they'll be doing the exact same things to try and win the wild card series as they would that 3-game series to try and get home field.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can see the final week of the season being a preview of the wild card series. That would be interesting. So, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, this is just, a huge, like you mentioned, it's a huge 10-game stretch. I mean, it goes beyond then because they play the Giants right after that. And the Giants are still kind of lurking in the wild card race. They're 4 games back. But yeah, I mean, this last month, there's just going to be so many matchups that will be interesting to watch and how the Diamondbacks manage this. And so, yeah, just it's exciting that they put themselves in this position.
All right. So thanks everyone for watching again. Make sure to check us out, burncitysports.com for our sports content. And if you're like the podcast, make sure to follow us on X at BurnCityDbacks, and where I post repost game highlights, and make sure to subscribe to the Burn City Sports YouTube page. Once again, here with Alex Weiner, I'm Michael McDermott, and wishing you a good rest of your day.